Warning: the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised.
And just in time for that, Danielle has put out a tweet. The Ethics Commissioner report has confirmed that the CBC and the NDP lied regarding Crown Prosecutor contact. She was gratified to read the findings. Read the full letter below. Except the full letter below is just her statement on UCP letterhead. What one should probably spend time reading is the actual report from the Ethics Commissioner. But Danielle Smith doesn't think anybody's going to try and find that. People are just going to read what's been put on UCP letterhead and think that she is all in the clear, that everybody lied. Except it's not everybody else lying, Danielle, because the whole report is public. And so if you go to conclusion and recommendations, Madam Trussler absolutely found that Danielle Smith violated the Code of Ethics. It's in black and white. The Ethics Commissioner is clearly saying that Danielle breached the Code of Ethics in regards to her interactions with the Minister of Justice, pertaining to the charges Pulowski was facing. So you can put that the CBC and the NDP lied, but you breached the Code of Ethics. I cannot with this woman. Now, Madam Trussler didn't recommend any sanctions, but she has reserved the right to see what happens when legislature reconvenes. She's also made recommendations that everybody needs to take some courses. All new ministers have to take mandatory training on the structure of Canadian government. I mean, if that isn't a fuck you to having the premier of a province thinking that she can grant clemency, I mean, it's brilliant, madam. Brilliant. She also thinks that potentially they need to revisit the act. But this is what Danielle puts out. And if you're a donkey and just read the bold, you're going to think she's in the clear. Because she counts on her little donkeys not actually delving deeper into something. She's not in the clear. She's an ethics breacher. Shock of shocks. So let's recap the UCP. Racists, transphobes and homophobes, science deniers, breachers of ethics, liars. This cannot be who Albertans want to put in charge of them. Put in charge of your healthcare and your pension, your children's education, the oil money that you all love so much. These are the people that you want to put in charge of that? These are bad people. Forget politics. They don't make good judgment calls. Chandro yelling at people on the driveway, Madhu trying to get out of tickets, candidates talking about litter boxes and children being exposed to pornography, and their queen bee breaching codes of ethics. Oh, this debate's gonna be good. I can't with this bitch. Fuck all of the UCP.
Back with our panel of party leaders. Job creation and the economy factor into the UCP and NDP campaigns in a big way, both parties with major promises. Mr. Roggeveen, what are you prioritizing on that front, and does the energy sector factor into that?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, Alberta's prospered for a long time on the basis of the oil and gas industry, and the oil and gas industry has to go through transition. There's no question about it. We have to look at things like hydrogen, and we also have to look at other energy-related industries. Alberta can produce lots of solar and wind power. People have been displaced in jobs. We need to retrain those people and find jobs for them. But we also have to look at expanding the economy into new areas like maybe semiconductors. The feds are going to put some money in there, 160 million or something like that. We should be in on those programs and work with the federal government to try and expand our economy as well.
Mr. Morishita, how much emphasis do you put on the energy sector when it comes to driving the economy, creating jobs?
Well, I think it's going to be part of it, but I think the government's job is to provide a roadmap, certainty for all the industries, goals that have to be met, the net zero by 2050 goals, allowing the regulation to support that, and industry will be innovative and they will get the job done. If they can make money in that circumstance, they will invest and do that. When it comes to other industries, I think we do have to incentivize, give the same types of tax incentives to life sciences and biosciences, to IT, to secondary agricultural processing, those kinds of things. For far too long, we've been focused on one, and we need to focus broadly on others. There's a tremendous value in our post-secondary system to create value in industry and money in this province, and we need the province to be leading the way and investing in those things as well.
Mr. Wilkie, Green Party driving the economy forward. Does the energy sector have still a role to play as far as you're concerned?
Energy sector definitely has a role to play. Our platform touches a lot on agriculture and small businesses and these issues. But I want to put this out on the table because the Greens always get villainized that we're going to shut down oil and gas. But I'm not going to shut down oil and gas. I want to act like owners. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about acting like an owner. And when you do that, you ensure that you enforce the polluter pays system. And that would create a reclamation job boom. When you create a reclamation job boom, you have tens of thousands of jobs that are in this sector alone. You're talking about the energy sector. So that's just the abandoned wells and the orphaned wells. Furthermore, there's a huge cleanup for the issues that are happening up in the oil sands itself. So we need to look at this as a holistic approach to not only environment, but job growth within that sector.
Okay, let's maybe squeeze one more in before we wind down the conversation, and that has to do with the relationship between the provincial government and municipal governments, which, as we all know, have been strained at times, but it's vital to the political dynamic in Alberta. Mr. Morshid, I'll start with you. You're a former mayor. How would you do it differently?
Well, we have to actually become partners. So one of the things the Alberta Party has said is that we would entrench the municipal level of government in the Alberta Bill Constitution, which is something we can do. We'd restore funding, and then we'd start to explore actual real partnerships in service delivery. We have a broad sophistication of municipalities across this province, and we've seen kind of the jurisdictional fighting, whether it's policing downtown Edmonton, those kinds of things. We need to work together for these solutions, and we have to find who's best to deliver, and oftentimes it is municipalities. So we need to change the MGA. We need to allow those partners to grow and flourish, and the community capacity is immense across this province. I know I've traveled the entire province. If we can tap into that, we can get a lot done with a lot less money.
Mr. Roggeveen, how would you approach the relationship, that municipal-provincial dynamic?
Well, we need to improve it, but one thing that we could do is create charters for Edmonton and Calgary. That would help with them having more control over their own powers. We've got to stop doing things like taking money out of the police budget for cities, and just because the province decides that that's what it wants to do. The province has to start giving more control to the cities because they're and other municipalities, because they're the ones that are closest to the people. They understand the problems quite often, and the government has let them down. It's let them down on the taxation side in the rural areas too. It's just that has to change.
Okay, the two front-running parties, they've been going at it tooth and nail, hammer and tong. There have been considerable tensions on the campaign trail. So maybe as a means of wrapping this up, let's talk about the state of politics in the province. Mr. Wilkie, I'll go back to you first this time.
And going back to the municipalities, again, this comes down to partisanship, and this is part of the issue. Is with all this hyper-partisanship, and the municipalities are getting into a clash because of these ideologies mixing up, when we should be focusing on building hospitals and schools in these areas and not political ideology. When you have these two parties so close in the polls, is what you're seeing is we have this opportunity of a lifetime to vote in third parties like the Greens, who have 41 candidates, and trigger the first minority government in Alberta history. When we do that, we have more accountability, transparency, and imagine some collaboration in the legislature. I think that's what is on the table here, and I think that this is something that Albertans need to stand up and really voice their values in this election in order to get to where we need to get to, or else we'll always be going back and forth with these two-party system.
Mr. Roggeveen, how would you pull Albertans together?
Well, I agree with the leader of the Green Party. We have to work together. We need to get some third parties elected, because the third parties will be able to hold the government to account, whichever government gets elected. None of us are going to form the government. So we really need to have the tone of politics change in Alberta so that we actually have conversations with each other instead of bickering with each other, which is where we're at right at the moment. And so I think if we work together and we get some third parties elected, it'll be good for the province of Alberta and good for Albertans.
To Mr. Roggeveen's point, Mr. Morishita, none of you will be elected to government, but how do you do it differently?
Yeah, I think you put some MLAs that aren't NDP and aren't UCP in a minority government, and you're going to be able to change the tone of the debate. You're going to change the behavior. You're going to be able to change the moderation of policy back and forth. You're going to stabilize it for industry and investment. You're going to stabilize it for families who need their affordability issues dealt with, disability issues dealt with. You're going to be able to bring a sensible approach to education and healthcare, and you're going to be able to actually innovate because you're going to have that space. And I think to that point, I think we have a responsibility too. That we have three leaders here that, you know, largely agree on a lot of things. And maybe going forward, it's time for us to sit down and say, you know, how do we create the conditions that are best for Alberta? And maybe not so best for a party. And I think if we can get to that conversation, we can make headway in this province.
Well, gentlemen,
I wasn't really going to touch this story because we've seen it from the UCP and it's not surprising. But because today is International Day to Stop Homophobia and Transphobia, it's on. I'm just going to preface this with a trigger warning. This is Jennifer Johnson, the UCP incumbent for Lacombe-Ponoka. She only recently won a seat. Jennifer holds a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So one would think she would understand things. She does not. She also homeschooled her children. Yeah. So let's take a little listen to some of Jennifer's thoughts.
Enjoy. I only put a teaspoon of poop in them, but it doesn't matter because it's only a teaspoon in the whole batch.
So you pick which one is good.
Yeah. And they obviously put the cookie. This is not a true story. So but the idea is we can be top 3%, but that little bit of poop is what wrecks it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it is when we've got furries in the classroom. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
These kids who are identifying as cats, and the teacher puts a litter box in the classroom for them. And girls saying, I'm not a boy anymore when they're 7 years old. And transitioning at 14 years old and getting mastectomy, double mastectomies, and getting chemically sterilized when they can't even go to a liquor store and buy a beer. And yet we're allowing them to be chemically castrated and sterilized. This is more than a teaspoon of poop.
Yep. That's your UCP incumbent comparing children dealing with gender identity issues to poop in a cookie. Now, there's a lot of mis and disinformation in that little clip. The whole litter box in the classroom thing is a fallacy. Correction, it's not. It comes out of the US, where classrooms have buckets with kitty litter in case there is an active shooter and children are locked in said classroom and need to go to the bathroom. It has nothing to do with furries or children identifying as cats. That's a twisted narrative that you guys have come up with to validate your bigotry. There are also many processes in place for children wanting to transition. Surgeries are not performed on anybody under 18. So you're a big old bigoted liar, Jennifer. Now we see where the UCP priority is. Jen's concern is that kids are making these choices when they're not even old enough to buy beer. Maybe because buying beer is not their main priority. Not like a backwoods hick having a bush party. They're struggling with being their true selves. And maybe instead of putting out your unrequested judgment into the world, you could show, a little bit of empathy. Be thankful that you've never had to deal with that or your children have never had to deal with that. But we don't know because I feel like your children wouldn't be able to come out to you if that were the case. But don't you worry, Lacombe-Ponoka. Jen said she's sorry. The UCP is a petri dish for bigots and hate. But I guess that clip doesn't matter, right?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. So, the internet and the news has blown up with some news about our UCP candidate, Jennifer Johnson in Lacombe-Ponoka. I'm going to do a live in about a half an hour and talk about this in more detail. I don't want to do it right now because I'm driving a 76 Grand Torino with no air conditioning, so the window has to be down. But I will say this. Number one, our conservative leaders should be standing by the conservative candidates and not falling prey to the lies and the misinformation of the loony left. And both leaders need to take a good look in the mirror and decide what they want to be for Albertans. Do they want to be a unifying voice, or do they want to fall prey to the bullshit political maneuvering of the other side? And yes, I do still stand by Jennifer Johnson. I stand with Jennifer Johnson, and I will discuss why in 30 minutes. See you then.
So that was the awfulness of Jennifer Johnson. And what came of that is the fact that she is still the candidate in Lecompanoka. And like we said earlier, that the lot of people in Lecompanoka are voting, are showing that they're voting for the UCP government. And yeah, so with them showing that, it is frightening, to say the least, on the aspect of the this many people and wanting to vote conservative. And like we said, that Take Back Alberta is what's behind the UCP. So if you want to vote conservative, you have a number of choices. You could vote the Alberta Party, and in Lacombe, you could vote for Miles Chikura. You could vote for the NDP. Because, as Rachel Notley proved tonight by wearing blue, just showing that conservative mindset. So right now, tonight's debate was between two conservative parties. One was a progressive conservative, one was a right-wing conservative. So understand, when you're voting for the UCP, you're voting for a right-wing conservative government. If you would like a conservative government that isn't going to send us into the Stone Age and will protect the rights of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, then you vote for the NDP. If you don't want either one of those choices, if you're like me, you would vote third party. And the third party that isn't one of those choices is 100% the Green Party. And as you saw earlier, where the Green Party leader, Jordan Wilkie, was part of that debate. Today, prior to the duopoly debate, the Green Party of Alberta has provided their electoral platform. Introducing the 2023 platform, Demand Better for Alberta. We are a collection of everyday Albertans who come from all walks of life. We're teachers, students, farmers, ranchers, first responders, healthcare workers, small business owners and managers, filmmakers, artists, and more. Some of the highlights from their platform include jobs and economy, where they want to collaborate with unions, create good public sector jobs, treat climate action as job action, launch the reclamation job boom, cut taxes for small businesses in half to 1%, found the Alberta Resilience Corps to end unemployment, raise taxes on large corporations from 8% to 12%. Healthcare, work with unions to support healthcare workers, hire more staff to deliver better care on time. Cover mental health care for Albertans, ending pay out of pocket for essential mental health care by covering it under the Alberta Health Care Action Plan. Move on from cost inflating private delivery. Protect our pensions. Support for families. Assistance for seniors. Empower Albertans with disabilities. So one of the proponents for the Alberta Party, the Green Party of Alberta. Alberta Party is the other party that will probably support some of these things, but not all of them. The biggest one that the Green Party is eradicate poverty through a universal basic income. which we know Rachel Notley will not support. She has spoken out against UBI in multiple times. The NDP will not support it. The UCP will not support it. The Alberta Party is very lukewarm on the idea. The Green Party of Alberta is the only party that is looking to take care of those in poverty in this province. Use as many resources as a wealthy province to lift Albertans out of poverty through a basic income sufficient to cover basic needs. Reduce the major expense of poverty, estimated $9.5 billion, before factoring in government-funded payments and services. Alleviate a major factor in crime by alleviating poverty, following the examples of the CERB, which contributed to a reduction in crime during its period of payment. Give Albertans freedom to start a business, make art, pursue a different career without worrying about their income. Head off cycles of boom and bust and technology changes like artificial intelligence and external shocks like climate change or COVID-19. Big proponent on climate change, protecting our drinking water. Shore up wildfire prevention practices, strengthen Alberta's wildfire response. Cut GHG emissions to net zero by 2040, peak emissions by 2025. Support local food production. Promote drought resilience and water conservation. Implement a Housing First program to end homelessness. Focus on a goal of ending homelessness and ensuring all Albertans have permanent housing through a Housing First program, providing long-term housing for people experiencing homelessness. Follow the Finland model, which keeps over 80% of participants housed permanently and saves the government $21,000 per housed person by reducing expenditures on emergency services, hospitals, and prisons. Aim to prevent homelessness before it occurs by delivering early intervention services, financial assistance for housing, and outreach services to forge a path to stable housing. Cap rent increases, build affordable housing, save lives by addressing the drug poisoning crisis. And that comes back to the harm reduction that the UCP is eliminated and wants it to be forced addiction therapy. They presented a bill to make it a law that anyone, including public service workers like the police and social work, can have people committed to an addiction facility forcefully if they deem it necessary. Electoral reform, reintroduce proportional representation in Alberta. Good news about proportional representation, it was actually tabled at the federal Liberal Party convention earlier this month, and it passed members passed by 60% on wanting to address the proportional representation. We'll see if that actually gets presented as a bill, but those are some baby steps. And if the Green Party of Alberta gets in, they will look to implement these things. Public education, eliminate tuition fees at public colleges and universities, introduce a basic income for students and families, reduce class sizes, scrap the UCP curriculum, replace it with an evidence-based inclusive curriculum. You know, a curriculum that would actually look at the 2S LGBTQIA plus community with respect and dignity, not describing them like pieces of shit that could go in a cookie. If you're wondering that, hashtag search Jennifer Johnson. Before we got shut down from the computer gremlins, we were talking about Jennifer Johnson and the fact that she wanted to go, and if she gets elected, she will continue her education in supporting the 2S community if she gets elected. Danielle Smith has come out and said that if she gets elected, she will not be in cabinet. But she did not say forever and when Danielle Smith says something's forever, as tonight's debate proven, when she said, I will never do this, Rachel Notley brought up the point of Danielle Smith saying she would never cross the floor, and then did when she was a member of the Wild Rose. So, trustworthy UCP? Not so much. Protecting the rights of citizens? Not so much. The unfortunate part is the NDP pick and choose who they protect. I will say 100% that Rachel Notley will protect the rights of the 2S community. However, the track record is not strong in protecting the disabled community and protecting people in poverty. And this elephant in the room for both parties, as a person, a citizen, and a voter in Lacombe Ponoka, and a member of the Save Our Hospital for the Red Deer Regional Health Center, neither party have supported healthcare in Central Alberta. A lot of promises, a lot of lip service from both parties. I can go and show you the documents and the news stories. I'm not going to bore you with those details. Let's just say when Rachel Notley and the NDP were in play, there was a lot of investigating. There's a lot of surveying. There's a lot of case studying, but no groundbreaking and no funds going to support the healthcare in Central Alberta. On the other hand, Jason Kenney promised that they're going to provide a expansion to the existing hospital. Danielle Smith says she's going to do the expansion to the hospital. Now, Rachel Notley has come out and said that she's going to do an expansion of the hospital. However, it won't be a private, public-funded initiative. They're going to avoid that initiative because all it causes is delays, which are similar to the delays of the NDP being in 4 years in power and not doing anything for healthcare in Central Alberta. So just so you're all aware of that. So UCP has done nothing. They've decimated the system. They're trying to privatize it. The NDP did nothing while they were in power either. So if you're in Central Alberta and you don't want to vote NDP and you don't want to vote UCP, then our suggestion would be to vote a third party. In Lacombe Ponoka, you could vote for Miles Kurna and the Alberta Party. You could vote the Green Party in Lacombe Ponoka. You could vote the Green Party in Lacombe Masquachese. You could vote Ponoka Masquachese. You could vote the Green Party in Red Deer. If you're in Fort McMurray, not the one that Brian Jean's in, but the other one, Fort McMurray, Ward Buffalo, we had that fantastic guest last week. You could vote independent candidate Funky Benjoko. You really want to have accountability in the election? Vote third party, because they will hold these members of the two-party duopoly accountable. Lots of lip service from the two parties. Lots of lip service tonight in the debate. A lot of attacks from both sides. Danielle Smith did look at her book and her notes a lot to ensure that she stayed on topic. Rachel Notley stumbled through a lot of her responses that weren't the cookie cutter response. If she went out of the playbook, she hummed and hawed at those comments. Both of them claim that they're better than the other. And I'm going to say, on behalf of the abpoli, and we'll talk about that towards the end, a new initiative utilizing the third-party advertiser status we hold with Elections Alberta. Neither party is good for you. Neither leader is good for you. Check out our poll at AB_poli on Twitter. Currently, we're running a poll. So far, it's in early stages of the votes. So 43 votes so far, 22 hours left. And our question, who lost the AB vote debate? And your choices, Rachel Notley, Danielle Smith, or Alberta. And so far running away with 51.2% of the vote is Danielle Smith as the person voted the loser of the AB vote debate. Rachel Notley coming in close second at 25.6%, with the province of Alberta sitting in third at 23.3%. We expect, feel free to vote yourself and share, and we will have the results on we'll have the results next week for sure. Might do a TikTok with the results later this week. But yeah, a lot of people saying that Danielle Smith lost the debate. We're not disputing that fact. But we question exactly what you could constitute as a win. So Rachel Notley is trending in Canada. And the Alberta NDP have already cut pieces of the debate. Notley came in and said that the debate that Danielle Smith did break the rules. We're not disputing that at all. However, we're concerned that this was just a peeing match, if you want to go with the old school misogynist way of, I mean, it was civil. We'll give you that. The civility of the debate was much appreciated. But yeah, that was the debate. Notley's offering stable leadership. Smith is offering a Looney Tune Take Back Alberta leadership. Get out and vote. And again, if you want change, ignore the pundits. Because the only way we're going to get change is if we actually vote in an independent or third-party representation into the legislature. You hear everyone say that if you vote third party, that's going to let the other one win. The other one's going to win regardless. Voting for a third party is not going to stop one party from winning or another party winning. What it will stop if you vote a third party is to give them momentum, and could potentially stop a majority. Because either party getting in, we know it was mentioned in that third party leadership debate that happened earlier this week, that neither of the third parties are going to become the premier of the province or the elected government. But a third party candidate or an independent candidate could surely hold whoever is in government accountable, especially if it's not a majority. If it's not a majority and they require the independent or third party candidate to collaborate with them, a lot of the stuff that's been happening won't happen anymore. A lot of the things that happen under the UCP, of laws being passed because there's no opposition to have enough votes to stop it, won't happen again. What does that mean for Alberta? Accountability. And that's why we suggest voting third party or independent. Because the only way the third party or independent are going to get in is if you vote for them. So don't listen to people say that you're wasting your vote. Because if all the people that say you're wasting your vote actually voted for the third party would win. Think about that one. So we've talked about Jennifer Johnson a lot tonight. And Jennifer Johnson has done whatever. She's apologized, supposedly, these sort of things. She's going to do all this work for her if she gets elected. Can you afford to have that? Can you afford to have them elected? And that's one of those things that we don't believe you can. So if you're in Alberta and you're voting, again, number one, don't vote for the UCP. That's just right away. Don't do that. You want to vote Conservative? Feel free to vote Conservative. Vote the Alberta Party or the NDP. Both are very good Conservative choices for you. If you want to vote anything that is not Conservative, vote the Green Party, and we shared their platform earlier today or earlier tonight. So when we're talking about the work that Jennifer Johnson has supposedly done, she has come out and basically with a dog whistle, and the UCP leader, Danielle Smith, has had a similar dog whistle. So this came across our feed from the Queer Alberta Safety Net. And their comment in dismissing Ms. Johnson, Amy Danielle Smith has picked up the dog whistle, blowing it herself. There are certainly legitimate policy discussions to be had on youth transgender issues. As the party has not disavowed this position, will they elaborate on it? Why is Smith's comment an issue? Because it legitimizes political intervention in medical decisions. Politicians should have no say over people's bodies. The UCP seemed content on using the law to regulate those who don't conform to their expectations of how a person should present. So, why is this so dangerous? Well, we've heard Danielle Smith compare the province in regards to what they're doing in Texas and in Florida. Yes, thank you. Like what Canada's doing about guns, we like that as well. We've been very adamant about our stance on guns. We're, as a family of gun owners, not myself, but my father and mother on the farm, for safety. I believe in gun control. So does my dad. My dad is a 80-something-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who has a plethora of rifles and hunting guns as well as ammunition. He's the first person to tell you that he would love to take you all hunting, that everyone should have the right to hunt with a gun, but they also should complete the firearm safety course beforehand. And all his guns are locked up and the ammunition is locked up in a separate aspect. And we learned about the safety of guns at a very young age. Learned how to shoot a gun at a very young age. Almost blew my shoulder because the gun has a massive kickback. But we're also happy that when I take our kids to their grandparents, because we have conversations about guns and they see Guido with the gun, there isn't an interest in the gun. The guns aren't left unattended. I have no worry that my child is going to go and get the gun because the gun is locked up as long with the ammunition. So I believe in the ability to own guns. We should absolutely have the right to own guns as long as they're registered. And the gun control on the indigenous lands should be different because culturally the indigenous people hunt and use guns traditionally. And I would never want to, as a white privileged settler, tell anyone of our indigenous people, anyone of the indigenous people community, what they should do. I don't believe we should tell anyone what to do other than not allow crazy, and I apologize, it's an ableist term, unstable individuals in politics. So why we were talking about why the issue with the trans had the issues, because Danielle Smith compares herself to Florida, and Governor Ron DeSantis signs the anti-LGBTQ law affecting gender-affirming care, bathroom use, and drag shows, and signs the bill at Christian school on International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. Of course, he chose his Christian school as part of his agenda, and cheering crowd at Cambridge Christian School in Tampa, and all based on his campaign of coming from the right-wing religious freedom fighting people. And that is a valid point. Traditionally, they didn't have guns before settlement. And if we look at the whitewashed history that I learned, it was the settlers that provided the guns to the indigenous people. But it wasn't in any sort of good way. They provided those guns basically like they provided alcohol to destroy the lives of the indigenous people. Early genocide from the white settlers. Absolutely. Cheering for politicians is a scary concept. Again, and we'll go to that now. So when we were under investigation through Elections Alberta for being a undisclosed political third-party advertiser, we actually registered as a political third-party advertiser. We're not an electoral third-party advertiser, so we can't do anything when it comes to the accountability piece until after the election. So our promise right now is we're going to transform our political third-party advertiser status, which is currently sitting as, let's find the page here. It's ADC Angry Dad Canada, I believe, is what we're listed. So we will be refiling Angry Dad Canada, Game Changers Canada. So we're listed under our parent company. So you see there we're listed under proper name as that political third-party advertiser. So moving forward, we are going to shift that political third-party advertiser status. We're going to keep the status, but we're going to rebrand in the process of accountability. So when we're looking at what we want to do, we want to come forward as the Alberta Accountability Alliance. And that is coming soon. We cannot do anything until the election is over, and then our political third-party status will be official again. We will rebrand it as the Alberta Accountability Alliance. You see the logo right here. That is part of the alliance. And so we will have that, and we're looking to connect with all third-party political candidates, as well as any Albertan that wants to make sure that whoever, be it the UCP or the NDP, get into political power, are held accountable moving forward. So the Alberta Accountability Alliance will be launched in June, shortly after the May 29th election is finished. And we look forward to connecting with people there and having a bigger voice in regards to what we want to see on a political spectrum. So what we want to see in regards to supporting in the interim we see what the Queer Alberta Safety Net we're posting. We see that they're struggling. We see that that they're raising funds. And we clearly want to help where we can. So, we're pleased to announce tonight at our co-fi.com/talking truth shop, now available the Dragon Dad design. Dragon Dad 15-ounce ceramic mug. Display you're not down with the double D diatribe as a dragon. 1997 Canadian plus tax and shipping. 100% net profits donated to qasn.ca. And we have other items here, and just go to the shop. Dragon Dad t-shirts. Tri-blend tea, $29.97. All net proceeds or net profits to the QASN. And also, when we're limited to those in black. And we're also relaunching the Respect the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, or I'm going to identify as you/your problem. Unity with integrity. Unisex teas and coffee mugs. All net profits to the QASN.ca Queer Alberta Safety Net. So we're hoping to help them out, showing off the new design. I am a Dragon Dad. Very proud to be a Dragon Dad. I have 2 children that are identify as members of the 2S community, and I created this design myself, and I'm very proud of it. One of my best looking designs, and the coffee mugs are awesome. Fill more than a 2 cup of coffee. Looks great. Quality mugs, quality t-shirts. If you normally wear a small, go to a medium, and just one size up with the t-shirts, because they do fit tight, but they are quality. So visit our co-fi.com/talking truth shop. And put the link in the description here into the chat. And you just click right through and visit the shop. Again, all net profits going to the QASN Queer Alberta Safety Net that are working hard to be a voice for the 2S community. And we want to show our support as Dragon Dads. As always, like and subscribe across the board. Thank you for joining us on our Alberta election 2023 review. If you have any topics you want us to cover, connect with us on social media. You want to come on the show? Glad to have you. Connect with us on social media. For the AB_poli team and the team at Talking Truth, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.